If you want to get a German talking passionately about something, you need to talk about one of two things, either beer or bread. In this video, it's all about bread. We even invited a special guest who is a German bread expert to help us answer some of your questions. So stick around if you want to know who he is. Hey, my name is Jen and I'm from Guatemala.
Mine is Yvonne and I'm German.
And together we're from Simple Germany, where we help you settle into life in Germany more smoothly.
Additionally to this YouTube channel, we also run our website simplegermany.com, where we have written in-depth guides on topics that we don't discuss on YouTube to help you navigate your life in Germany even better.
To start the video, we will first give a little bit of introduction of why is German bread so special? And I have the answer, because I had to do some research on this. Again, let me put my research goggles that I like to put on. A few fun facts. Did you know, for example, that there are over 3,200 types of breads in Germany?
That is a lot.
That's a lot. Germany is one of the very few countries that actually grow all three ingredients at home, like in Germany, which are?
Spelt, which is dinkel,
Yeah.
rye, and wheat.
Yeah, so that means that Germany does not need to import any of the ingredients to be able to bake bread, which is pretty awesome too.
Yep.
Germany is also one of the very little, if maybe not the one only country where you can actually get this Ausbildung or this apprenticeship of becoming a
Backmeister. So it's like an actual real profession. And
Yeah.
a quite valued one.
Yeah, I would agree. And did you even know that there are German bread sommeliers, literally whose whole job is to pair bread with food? That is so crazy. And to top it all off, German bread culture is so important that UNESCO added it to its intangible cultural heritage list in 2015.
That's pretty impressive.
That is pretty impressive. I think that answers the question of why is this so special. To provide you with the best video on German bread that we can, we asked our community for your questions. And we got tons of questions.
You definitely delivered, hands down. And also thanks a lot to all of you beautiful Germans out there that already provided so many answers with so much passion.
Yeah, again, you want to get a German talking with passion about something? Talk about bread. So we will divide this video into two parts. Number one is questions that we will dive a little bit deeper, as in the Q&A. And the second part is rapid fire questions that we will ask a German to see what her opinion is on the subject. So let's start with the first part.
Okay.
Question number one. If you didn't know, in Germany, there is a purity law for beer that all beer needs to abide to be able to be called beer. Is there something similar about that for German bread?
So to be honest, I had no idea, and we actually had to do some research, and the answer is like the typical German jein. So yes and no, it depends a little bit. There is no law per se. However, there is a basic principle, not just for bread, but for, I would say, any type of food in Germany. So for example, for bread in Germany, if you want to call a bread a Vollkornbrot, which is like a full wheat bread, then you need to have minimum 90% of Vollkorn, the ingredient, like the full wheat, in the bread dough, because otherwise it could not be called a Vollkornbrot as per this basic principle.
Yeah, also the basic principle adds that the fat and sugar cannot be more than 10% of the contents of the recipe. And all of these principles are in a very German thing called the Lebensmittelbuch. Question number two. How do Germans store bread? Because it seems a lot of the questions were related to my bread gets moldy super quick. How do you do that?
Yeah, that question actually appeared more than once by far, and there is a very simple trick to it.
Science, I would call it.
Well, if you buy a full loaf of bread, try to buy it not sliced already, but as a full bread, and only cut the slices that you are going to eat immediately for your enjoyment. And then you can already cut the bread into slices, but freeze it immediately. The thing is that the moment you slice the bread up, it becomes dry and it loses freshness, and you need to freeze it to keep it fresh, because otherwise it will become moldy. If you want to keep it outside the freezer for a few days and you don't want it to become hard, I usually always have it in the bag from the bakery, and that then together in a plastic bag to keep it soft.
Yeah.
It loses its fresh taste.
Ah, okay, but it's still soft and you can cut the slices every morning if that's what you want to eat, or every evening, or whenever you want to eat it.
Right.
There's the whole science, I told you.
So usually what I would do back in the day when I was still eating bread is I would get a loaf, I would cut the two pieces I would eat immediately, cut it in half, The half that I already had started eating, I would leave in my plastic bag to consume over the next couple of days. And the other half, I would put into the freezer and then just take out the slices every day as much as I'm gonna eat.
Yeah. Number 3 that someone asks is, how do I use the machine for cutting bread without cutting my finger?
So if you have one, congratulations to you. You are one step closer to becoming German.
Yeah.
And here is a quick demonstration. I totally understand your question. Actually, as a kid in our household, there has been an accident involving this.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is how you use it. Step number 1, make sure it is connected to electricity. Step number 2, you want to be sure you know the thickness of your bread. So typically in Germany, it's not really thin, it's not really thick. It's like about a centimeter, like a finger wide of a slice that you want to cut. And you can do the thickness by turning here on the little turny. Step number 3, you take your beautiful, complete, full bread of loaf, German bread of loaf, place it onto your bread cutting machine and push it against this side of the machine. Now comes the important part to keep all your 10 fingers. With your right hand, in this case, you hold the loaf at the end, far away from the blade. And with your left hand, you hold on to the handle, and with this part of your fingers, you push against this thing here. The moment I do that, the blade starts running. And in practice, it's like this. So this is a perfect German sliced bread of a bread loaf. It's the perfect thickness and it's very nice and soft inside, so it smells yummy. This piece, the end, is called der Kanten, and some love it, some don't like it that much.
Question number 4 from a viewer is, the bread that I buy in the supermarket, the sliced bread, tends to be quite dry. Is this normal?
I would say it can be, yes, because the thing that happens is the supermarket already is not as fresh as from a bakery. And the moment a bread gets sliced, it's already not as fresh as if it remains a loaf. So you combine two things that already make it less fresh, and obviously the taste gets lost. So advice here is, don't buy sliced bread from a supermarket. If you want a supermarket, then buy the loaf and slice it at home for only the amount that you're gonna eat and freeze the rest.
Number 5 is, which kind of bread can I drink with my tea?
Ooh, very interesting, because we would never usually combine that, like bread in the general type of German bread with tea. But if you are into that, don't go for the typical hard, strong, grainy bread, but more for something soft and sweet, which would be a Milchbrötchen, a milk bread roll.
What are the best types of bread that you would recommend for a vegan?
Ooh, interesting questions.
So you might think that German bread is vegan by default because you need very basic ingredients and they're all like not animal products. However, the trick comes because some bakers, like the ones that produce for a big batch, or like even some production companies.
The mass-produced ones.
The mass-produced ones, yes, exactly. They would add some additives or proteins to the bread to make it hold for a longer amount of time and to keep the shape fluffy and nice. And these things that they add could contain animal products. So that's where it's not 100% vegan. The best bet that you can do is go to your local bakery and then ask them, hey, which of your breads is vegan or does not contain animal products? It's within your rights in Germany, when you go to a bakery, this is a thing, to be able to ask for the ingredients of each bread.
Yeah, so in our field test, when we actually went to a bakery and asked whether they have vegan bread, very friendly, she actually said, well, one moment, took out a list, a laminated list, of course, where all the vegan breads were listed, and that list was long, and she started like counting them and like showing us where they are, and then she said pretty much everything. So I would say, again, in a bakery, the chances to find vegan bread is quite high. In supermarket bread, since it's more mass-produced, I mean, you really need to look for the vegan sign on the packaging.
Yes, that's very good advice. Number 7, which I'm going to read because it's a bit longer, and it goes, are Germans keen on baking their own home bread as a family tradition and perhaps for special occasions?
So let's think about this. As a family tradition in my family, definitely not. Have I ever baked my own bread? Definitely not. But my sister has. So it's not a general thing. I would say it's definitely not a German like tradition,
super big, okay.
That everyone grows up with. But especially through COVID and the pandemic and the lockdown, I would say baking bread has become a bigger of a hobby, especially sourdough bread. But it's not a German thing.
Yeah, thing. Number 8 is, how do you identify the breads that need to be baked in the oven?
That is, I would say, a very, very important question, because it's not only happened once or twice, but it is a thing that unfortunately that is considered German bread and being eaten without being baked, then obviously that is just very bad quality
Yes.
and taste. So there are icons you need to look out for. And obviously this only happens when you buy supermarket bread.
Yes.
And there you still need to distinguish between frozen and non-frozen. I would say if it's frozen, it's quite obvious that you will bake it. But the not frozen one, that's where the danger lies.
Yes.
It comes packaged in plastic. And on the packaging, there are different indications, let's put it that way, that let you know that you need to bake it. Usually it's like this oven sign with an amount of minutes that you have on there. You can also look out for the word aufheizen oder aufbacken. Aufbacken means to actually bake it so it can expand. Those are like the terms and labels you should look out for. And I would say that majority of this type of bread is not the bread loaf that you usually have a picture in Germany. It's either rolls or like these ciabatta, actually like more baguette or Italian style, longer, thin bread types. Yeah.
So look out for those symbols. Number 9 is, where do you find the best breads in your region?
To be honest, you have to go around and taste and try for yourself. Tastes are different, regions are different. Here in the Rhineland, in Düsseldorf, where we are, there's definitely 2 bakeries that stick out. And the reason why I know is because every time we walk past one, there is a long line in front of it. And that just indicates, wow, something about this bakery is special. And those 2 are either Hinkel or Terboyken.
Yeah. Also, if you have an artisanal bread maker around you, that's definitely going to be a better quality than a supermarket bread, for example. We are definitely not big German bread experts.
Never baked a bread in my life.
Yeah. But we love to eat German bread, right?
Yeah.
So some of the questions that you asked were a bit more technical than we are prepared to answer. So we decided to invite our friend Hendrik from The Bread Code. He will be able to answer the most technical questions for you. First of all, introduce yourself, Hendrik.
Hey Jen, hi Yvonne, greetings Simple Germany subscribers. You might be wondering who this random person is. Well, Guten Tag, I'm Hendrik, also known as The Bread Code, and I run a YouTube channel dedicated to making amazing bread at home. Plus, I also happen to be a German at the same time.
So, Henrik, please tell us, what are the best fresh breads in Germany?
The most common bread you find here is called Graubrot or Mischbrot, pretty much grey bread or mixture bread. It's typically a combination of wheat and rye flour. We don't have such great weather in Germany, as you might have noticed. And in these conditions, rye grows very, very well. Wheat not so much. That's why rye is the grain of choice.
Now, we also had the question about generic types of bread and their quality differences. What do you think about that?
There's typically sourdough and there's the yeast option. I would recommend you to try to go for a sourdough option if possible. It's just simply more nutritious and has a better taste. If you go to the supermarket, you will find a lot of bread over there. Please do me a favor, check the packaging and search the ingredients. If there are all sorts of strange ingredients that you never heard of, don't buy this bread. If the list is very simple, this might be a good option for you. A good trick to storing bread, by the way, is just use a plastic bag and store it inside of your fridge. You won't have mold issues and your bread is gonna stay good for a long period of time. Afterwards, just toast it in your toaster or in the oven, or directly on your stove.
Now, the next one for me personally is very interesting because I would say it's not that popular in Germany, but does acceptable German white bread exist?
Yes, it definitely does. I would say most white bread that we are eating is probably in the form of Brötchen, bread rolls. Now, if you're a German and you're watching this, you might probably be furious because I just said Brötchen, by the way, very hard to pronounce. Because Brötchen, bread rolls, are named differently in all the regions of Germany. Schrippen, Wecken, there's all sorts of names. But seriously, if you want to have a nice breakfast, get yourself some of them. They are super delicious.
What is your opinion on sourdough bread? Is that commonly found in Germany?
Yes, the future of bread making is really in the past. More and more bakeries are going back to ancient times where sourdough has been used. However, to make a sourdough bread, you also have to spend more effort. It's harder. And that's why a sourdough option is typically a bit more expensive.
Wow, Hendrik, thank you so much for answering those questions. Hendrik is the creator of The Bread Code, which is a YouTube channel that you can follow if you're interested in creating your own sourdough bread. He has really tons of information and great tutorials for you to follow along, so make sure to check him out. Now let's dive to the rapid fire quick questions.
Okay,
are you ready?
Let me brace myself.
Is fresh gluten-free bread widespread in Germany?
Not really, no.
A viewer asks, even the bread sold in Lidl are very common in my perspective as a foreigner. Are they considered inferior from a German's perspective since it's a discount supermarket bread?
Technically, yes. I would say if you ask it that way, is it inferior? Yes. However, it doesn't make it totally bad and you are still okay to eat it.
Okay, next question. Do you miss German bread when traveling abroad?
Yes.
Where in the world have you felt closer to home in terms of bread?
Nowhere.
Where the furthest? Everywhere. Number 4, do you have a national bread?
I would argue no, there's not this one type that sticks out.
Okay. If you're liking this video, please consider liking it. And also, if you have not subscribed to our channel, please consider hitting that subscribe button, that big one right there, that's at the bottom. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can always provide a small contribution to the channel in the form of a virtual coffee at simplegermany.com/coffee. Thank you, and continuing with the program. What kind of spread is the most famous in your country?
Wow, that is way too many. There could be Frischkäse, could be Nutella, could be marmalade, could be like meat products, could be cheese products, could be nothing,
Okay,
could be
rapid
butter.
fire. Okay. How many times a week does the average German buy fresh bread?
1 to twice probably. Once for during the week and at least once per weekend.
Is it true that some Germans just eat bread for breakfast?
Definitely yes. Not just bread, usually with a spread, which we just mentioned before.
Okay. Why is it so delicious?
It just is.
Do Germans eat different bread at different times of the day?
Absolutely yes. We go into detail between the difference of during the week, like morning breakfast, evening dinner, and weekend breakfast in our mealtime video.
That you can check out. What is the most popular bread in Germany?
According to statistics, it's the Mischbrot, which is a brown bread.
Oh, okay. Are eggs used while preparing bread?
No, generally not.
Number 12 is, what is your favorite bread brand for everyday breakfast?
So the bread rolls, the Brötchen that we're eating on the weekends are actually these. Yes, they're frozen. Yes, they're from the supermarket. Yes, they're mass produced. Oh my God, this sounds also horrible now saying this after this amazing detailed bread video, but that is just the pure truth.
Yeah.
And we just don't like to get up every morning on Saturdays and Sundays and buy them fresh. Sorry.
Yeah, sorry. We have done that in the past, but I would say it's not our default thing to do.
Yeah.
If you're curious about how Germans eat their meals, at what time and what do they eat, then make sure to check out the video Mealtimes in Germany, which is coming up next, or you can click on the card that's showing up now. Until next time, cheers!